There is new and pointed criticism of the way the U.S. State Department is being run in the Trump administration. This time it comes from a senior diplomat with 3 decades of experience here and abroad. William Brangham has the story.
There is simply no denying the warning signs that point to mounting threats to our institution and to the global leadership that depends on us. Those are the stark words of Ambassador Barbara Stevenson in a letter she wrote for the Foreign Service Journal. Stevenson rails against what she says is the decapitation of senior leadership within the State Department, and which she argues could harm America's ability to retain its role as a global leader. Over her long career, Barbara Stevenson was U.S. Ambassador to Panama and also held senior postings in Europe, Latin America, and the Middle East. She currently serves as the president of the Foreign Service Association, and she joins me now. Welcome.
Thank you so much, William. It's great to be with you.
Tell me, why did you put this letter out now?
You know, it came about because a journalist asked us, what's up? We knew cuts were coming. That's always been clear, so I should be clear about that. Secretary Tillerson said we would have 8% cuts. He told the Senate Foreign Relations Committee in June that he would cut the Foreign Service by 4%, the Civil Service by 12%. So the idea that cuts were coming was not news. But a journalist said to me, you know, I've been walking through Foggy Bottom. I have been through
the State Department office.
I've been to 4 retirement ceremonies there in this last week of September, all women acting assistant secretaries. And why is everybody leaving? Is this a story, or is this just some sort of a weird coincidence? And so we started to really compile the numbers. So we knew cuts were coming, but what was really surprising when we put the numbers together was how concentrated the cuts are at our very top ranks. We had 5 4-stars at the beginning of the year, so they're called career ambassadors. We now have 2 career ambassadors left at the 4-star rank. And then we'd had 33 at the beginning of the year that were at the 3-star rank. We call them career ministers, and they're down to 20. And then we have our 2-star ranks were 431 on the day after Labor Day, which is when the promotions were added in for the year. And they had fallen to 369. The department told us a few weeks ago, and we are already tracking another 11 or 12 that we know will be gone by December 1st. So these are 60%, 40%, 20% cuts. So the cuts are very concentrated among our very top leadership.
Let me read something from you wrote in your letter. You wrote, the talent being shown the door now is not only our top talent, but also talent that cannot be replicated overnight. The rapid loss of so many senior officers has a serious, immediate, and tangible effect on the capacity of the United States to shape world events. A couple of things to unpack there. Why can't they be replicated overnight?
The Foreign Service is, like the military, an up-or-out system. You enter it.
You get promoted or you're gone.
You get promoted or you're gone. So we grow people by bringing them in as an entry-level officer. So I came in 1985 as a little junior officer. And then over the course of the years, I moved up through FS2 and FS1, lieutenant colonel and colonel ranks. That's how we actually grow senior Foreign Service officers. And then there's a big cut when we go into getting that very first star to be a counselor of the Foreign Service. And only 35–40% make that cut of the officers, and then it's cut further. And by the time you get to our 3 stars, you're down to, probably 1%. So there's a very serious winnowing that goes on in this up-or-out system, but we grow people by bringing them in at the beginning and actually training them in how to be diplomats. We're not alone in this. The military does it this way. So does essentially every other diplomatic service of every major Western country.
Help me understand why this is going on. A journalist said to you, is this a coincidence? You looked at the numbers. You wrote this very pointed letter. You clearly don't think this is a coincidence. Why do you think this is happening?
Well, I know that there is a stated intention to cut the Foreign Service. We actually, as the American Foreign Service Association, did not rise up and object to that in principle, but the idea of so rapidly cutting our top leadership does, I believe, leave us. It leaves us a less strong institution, and that is just not at odds with the stated intent of strengthening the Foreign Service. I mean, there was a decision that was made to dramatically slash promotion numbers. So for that 1-star to 2-star jump, 61 people were moved into the 2-star ranks last year. This year, that number was cut to 29. So there's a conscious decision to dramatically cut these senior promotion numbers, and that has the effect of thinning the ranks of the senior leadership.
We reached out to the State Department to see if they would respond to your letter. They did. You've seen what they had to say. And they argue that these freezes, the hiring promotions, those are just temporary. They say that the retirement numbers are not out of order with historical patterns. And they argue that you're basically exaggerating the impact that this is going to have on our ability to do foreign policy. What do you say to that?
Well, I don't think it would surprise you that as a career diplomat, I believe that what we do is actually really important, that for Americans from all walks of life, when they go overseas to adopt a child or on a mission for a church or to open a business or to study, they count on the embassy to be home base for them. So it's staffed by people like me who are real Americans, but I also speak the local language and I know how to get things done in that country, and I really have their back. So I know that I'm valuable to my fellow Americans, but I also know that we are the keepers of that rules-based order that has made it possible for us to travel and trade so freely over the post-World War II period. So I think that what we do is actually, it's really important. And the numbers overall are in the 4% range that the Secretary talked about. What I wrote about was the surprising concentration at our very top leadership levels. That is striking to me.
Last quick question. The National Security Advisor, H.R. McMaster, seemed to argue in justifying these cuts that the people who are leaving are people who don't and have not gotten on board with the Trump administration's policy. How true is that?
That is, we are career diplomats. I was appointed ambassador to Panama by George Bush for my work on the Iraq surge. I served President Obama faithfully. I have served back and forth across my 32-year career. This is what we're trained to do in the Foreign Service. It's what we sign up for. It's what we swear an oath to. So that is discouraging to me, and it's not the Foreign Service I know.
Ambassador Barbara Stevenson, thank you very much.
Thank you, William. It's great to be here.